This was supposed to be a 5-minute gameplay impressions video because I haven't spent a lot of time with Doom games in the past and was only mildly interested in trying out the Dark Ages. I played the previous two games in the modern trilogy for a combined total of maybe 2 hours because I was quite busy with Destiny at the time and didn't really have time for another FPS franchise. So I booted up Doom the Dark Ages thinking that I would play for a couple of hours to get enough footage for a short video and move on. However, before starting the game, I came across this setting, Damage to Demons, and saw that the slider went all the way till 1000%. Regular fans of the franchise would probably laugh at the very idea of using something like this because they never play at anything below the highest difficulty setting. But as someone who believes there's nothing wrong in making use of the options that the developer gives you directly, I immediately jumped into the game with damage to player set at 50% and damage to demons set at 1000%. And that resulted in me completing the game in a little under 9 hours, and this video turned into a review. So while this is technically a review of the full game, please note that this footage is from a session that used difficulty modifiers to make the game super easy. Your experience will vary based on what difficulty settings you use. Moving on to the summary of this review, I must say that this game was quite enjoyable, and it succeeded in making me interested to try the other games in the franchise, which I suppose was partially the reason we got these modifiers. From what I've heard of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, they are much more complex games, especially Doom Eternal. So, if Dark Ages can serve as an easier introduction to the franchise, then this is a welcome move for the long term health of the franchise. It's got a lot of replayability and is full of secrets and collectibles to hunt down. The only question is whether you want to play this through Game Pass or feel that it is worth the asking price of $70. Now, let's move on to the full review. There will be a few spoilers ahead, although the game is mostly just your character butchering demons, so there's not really much to spoil.
The Horde will tear this village to pieces, but our time is running out. Soon, the humans will summon him.
This is the trickiest part of the game to talk about because I don't want to blindly reinforce the stereotype that no one plays Doom games for their story. The developers have put in a lot of effort to produce beautiful cinematic cutscenes to narrate a mostly decent story. But yes, I will admit that at the start of each level, I was impatiently waiting for the cutscenes to end so that I could start my rampage. That said, there is a coherent story here, so let me talk about that for a bit. This game is a prequel to the other two titles in the modern trilogy, so it is kind of an origin story for our hero, the Doom Slayer, or Doom Guy as we used to know him. It takes place in a medieval setting, but it's a futuristic medieval setting. So while we have people wearing cloaks and armor, they also have spaceships and communicate over radio. The premise is that there are two factions called the Sentinels and the Makers who are working together to fight against demons from hell. The Makers have control over the Doomslayer with a leash kind of thing called a tether. As long as the tether is active, the Makers can give orders to the Doomslayer, deploying him in and out of missions to fight the demons. Since there are three separate factions, you can guess that there will be some betrayals involved, and the story proceeds to balance the drama between the factions as well as Doomguy trying to break free from his tether. The biggest problem with the story is that it doesn't fit well into the structure of the game, which is split into chapters or levels. A good story can't be told if every few minutes we are reminded that we are playing a video game with a chapter complete screen and a list of collectibles being displayed. These forced breaks mean that the story doesn't flow smoothly and it feels more like an interruption to the gameplay rather than giving us a sense of watching the story unfold. Also, the Doomslayer is feared by everyone, and that means you, as the player, are not really scared of anyone. This makes the main villain of the game, Prince Azrak, seem very timid and weak. I think the writers did a very good job with the limitations they had. It's not as if they could take the 30-year-old Doom Guy character and suddenly make him look weak. So they did their best to work around that characterization, and how it will be received is up to the players. So while my eventual conclusion is again, don't play the game for the story, I will add that there is a sincere effort here to narrate a good story, and the production values are excellent. They will immerse you into the narrative, assuming that you are not impatient enough to press a button and skip it entirely. As part of the marketing, the developers said that the gameplay feels like you're playing as a tank. This is mostly accurate, as you can constantly hear the Slayer's heavy footsteps as you're sprinting, and it provides an illusion of moving slowly as a tank. The reality is that your character moves quite fast. I haven't played much of the previous games, so I can't compare how much faster he was in those titles, but the Slayer doesn't crawl forward slowly like an actual tank. He can sprint at a decent speed and leap forward into the air when needed. But if you still feel your character could be a bit faster, that's where the shield comes in. The entire gameplay loop is built around the shield, and it is undeniably fun. I've played enough of the earlier games to know that the shield is a great addition to the gameplay. It's a multi purpose tool that you can use to cross great distances, solve puzzles, use as a secondary weapon, and of course, to just block attacks as a normal shield. The most fun part is the charge feature, which lets you target an enemy who is far away and instantly jump to their location almost like a teleport. This is a great way to not only close distances but also to pull yourself out of danger if you need to. Of course, with my difficulty modifier, I was never really in danger, but I still found it fun to leap around the map with the shield charge. It's just plain silly fun. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with the general gameplay loop. The game is divided into 22 chapters, and the first few are predictably designed to introduce you to the various weapons and gameplay systems. Your goal in each chapter is to simply mow down huge waves of demons and get to the end of the level. Along the way, you are given some simple objectives such as destroy 2 gates or collect 2 relics, that sort of thing. The weapons offer a good variety, ranging from the standard shotgun to the Skull Crusher, which crushes skulls and throws bone fragments at enemies. Then there's also the all powerful BFC, which I won't spoil here, but it's a nice alternative to the famous BFG from earlier games. The level design is mostly consistent, and after a few hours, I noticed there were hardly any surprises until the end of the game. Almost every level in the middle section felt a bit predictable and repetitive, but that wasn't too bad considering that the moment to moment gameplay was still fun. If for some reason you do get lost in a level, however, the map is quite useful in pointing out areas that you've already explored and where you could go next. This is not an open world game, so the levels are quite linear. However, they are also large enough to hide a few secret areas that contain collectibles. At the end of each chapter, you are presented with a screen that shows how much of the level you have explored, along with a progress bar. This encourages completionists to keep replaying the levels until they get everything. Apart from collectibles, there are some useful currencies hidden in the levels, which are needed to upgrade your weapons, shield, and melee abilities. The upgrades are level gated, meaning you don't get access to some of them until later in the game. Once you start getting upgrades called runes, the gameplay becomes even more fun. I like the upgrade for my shield that rewards a successful parry with an auto firing shoulder mounted machine gun for a few seconds. These runic upgrades can be further improved, making them even better. That was pretty much it about the shooting part of the gameplay. but we are not done with the section yet, because this game has dragons and mech suits. These two elements of the gameplay have definitely seen a mixed reception from critics and fans alike. Some people like them for the change of pace they offer, while others hate them because they aren't as fun compared to the normal run and gun gameplay. I belong to the I like them for the change of pace camp. Let's look at each one in detail. First, the dragon. Occasionally, the Doomslayer has to travel farther than usual, so he calls up his pet dragon Serat. This dragon lets you ride at great speeds while still mowing down demons with a handy machine gun. The main issue, however, is that the rest of the game is not really suited to accommodate a dragon. You can't have an overpowered dragon go up against regular enemies. So, most of the time, we are asked to take part in quick time events where you dodge an incoming laser and then charge up your own weapon to shoot down the enemy. It's pretty basic and probably was not what people expected when they heard we would be getting a dragon in this game. Personally, I never really wanted to ride a dragon in a Doom game, so I didn't think about it much. I just saw it as a break from the standard levels and it worked out well. Now let's tackle the mech suits. Similar to the dragon, these levels appear occasionally, including ones at the very end. Here, the Doomslayer suits up in a huge mech suit to take on some of the largest demons in the game. As you can expect, with great height comes great heaviness. If you felt the Slayer moved slowly before, just wait until you pilot a mech suit. You can still sprint, but it feels noticeably slower than your regular movement. There's not much functionality offered by the mech suit, so all you can do is move around and punch. There's a couple of weapon related surprises that I won't spoil, but they don't add a whole lot much to the mech suit gameplay. Again, I felt these levels were a nice break from the usual formula, and since I was playing in super easy mode, they didn't last for too long, meaning I never felt tired of mech suits or dragons for that matter. I guess if I had to play each of these levels for an extended period of time, I would end up feeling tired and bored like some other players. The final piece of the gameplay loop involves simple puzzles, and I'm not talking about the secret areas which are well hidden, but the general environment puzzles that you need to solve in order to progress through a level. For the most part, these are quite simple and involve throwing your shield at different colored tiles at the right time. There was only one place where I was stuck for more than 5 minutes, and that was because the area was so huge that I completely missed the bright orange tile where I was supposed to throw my shield. The rest of the time, I was cruising at full speed thanks to my difficulty modifier and had a really good time. Unlike the previous two entries in the modern trilogy, this game does not have multiplayer. The developers skipped it because they felt the modern Doom games attract players due to the campaigns and not the multiplayer. This is perhaps the only area where the modern Doom games have failed to recapture the popularity of the original games. To wrap up this section, the gameplay made me feel like this is a campaign that someone who played the original games as a teenager would love to play because it's got a lot of that 90s energy with its non-stop action, splitting the game into individual levels, and basically letting players live out their power fantasies. I wouldn't know if this formula would appeal to a younger audience today, but older gamers will be happy to have games like the modern Doom trilogy for as long as they continue to play games. Let me start with performance. I played on my Series X console and faced no issues with the performance at all. On the PC side of things, I've seen a mostly positive reception, with some reports still claiming performance is a bit unstable, but on the whole, it seems like the game has had a smooth launch, with most players quite happy with the performance. Moving on to the visuals, I've already mentioned that I found the cinematics to be quite good. The rest of the game offers a dark and gloomy background suitable for a game that is mostly set in the backdrop of hell. This isn't a game where you can hope to see bright forests or beautiful waterfalls. True to its name, the game is dark most of the time, with the only colors that you usually see being the various ammo and health pickups. Most of the demons are colored in a reddish brown tint, and a lot of them launch bright orange projectiles. But there's only one color you need to keep an eye out for, and that's green. Parrying is an important part of the gameplay, and whenever you see something green coming towards you, that's an indication that you can parry that projectile back to wherever it came from. In general, everything is rendered stunningly well, fit for a full priced AAA game. As a reminder, I haven't played much of the earlier two games, but I know from the community chatter that they featured a lot of excellent heavy metal music. This time around, there is a different set of composers, and the hardcore community has been disappointed with the change in the quality of the music. Since I have nothing to compare it against, I don't have much to say about the music in the game, although I will agree with some of the reviews that the sound mixing feels a bit off. I left the sound settings untouched, so I'm sure I didn't mess up anything. But on many levels, I felt the music wasn't too audible at all unless I turned up my speaker volume. The sound effects felt quite good and satisfying, so I didn't notice the lack of music too much. I did feel disappointed at not being able to hear a variant of the classic Doom theme at any point of the game. I'm not sure if it exists in the game and I missed it, or if it doesn't play in the game at all. But either way, not having a variant of that classic track is like not having a variant of Ezio's family in an Assassin's Creed game. Doom is one of the very few franchises from the 90s that has continued to entertain modern audiences. All the other 30 plus year old franchises are mostly sports related. Doom has survived because it continued to reinvent itself and offered something new with each game. All the three games in the modern trilogy have now brought something new to the table. This will ensure that this franchise's legacy will continue to remain strong for several decades. If you've never played a modern Doom game, this is definitely the first title you need to pick up. It can be as easy or as difficult as you want it to be, and the non stop action gameplay will keep you entertained all the way till the end. Doom The Dark Ages is available on the PC, Xbox, and PlayStation platforms, and is, of course, available on PC and Xbox Game Pass. A link to the Steam store page can be found in the description. Thanks for watching.